Hello and welcome to the Empowering Family Health podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Callahan, and today my very special friend Antje Swart is with me today. And Antje is a hypnotherapist and a nutritional advisor. And Antje's mission is to empower people on all levels to be well and prosperous and feel fulfilled in life by living a healthy lifestyle with healthy habits. And Antje has 15 years of experience in various healing modalities. Now, this is part one of a two-part episode, so be sure to watch episode 2 coming shortly. So in this part one, we are going to be talking about how we learn as a child and using only 10% of our brain and living by our habitual patterns. We're also going to be talking about changing how we listen to our children. That's very, very empowering. And also our biggest challenge as parents, and that is, of course, electronics and digital dementia. But first, please do watch this video to the end. It does help with my YouTube algorithm and it helps to get fresh content to people like you. And I'll be giving you a free gift. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and you can like and share this video. And please give me some comments as well, and I'll give you a shout out on the next video. You can also go to the Facebook page, and there you can see new videos coming out as well. All here on the Empowering Family Health Show. So let's get on with the show. Hello everybody, you're very welcome back to another Empowering Family Health podcast, and I am absolutely so excited today because I have another wonderful guest, and Antje Swart is an incredible, really empowering lady, and we've had a conversation last week and she's just so much fun, a bundle of joy, and I can't wait to get into this episode with you today. So Antje, you're very welcome to the Empowering Family Health podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and share the knowledge and ideas and get people motivated and to a point where they ask questions and make changes.
Yeah, it's so great. It really is. And Antje's mission is to work with people, empower people on all different levels. So spiritually, financially, physically, mentally. And really Antje's mission is to have people feel empowered so they can feel fulfilled in their life, because many of us are walking around and we don't know what it is that we want in our life, and that's your mission. And also to from there to live a really healthy and happy life. So that's your mission, and we're going to unfold a lot of wisdom and information in this podcast. So Antje, tell us a little bit, just before we dive into all of that, tell us a little bit of your background, where you came from and why you're so interested, where your passion is coming from. I really want to know that.
You know, I grew up in Germany, and as a teenager, I was fascinated by the things that I saw on TV from the Eastern gurus and these yogis and these fakirs. And then it was during the Cold War time, so there was a lot of things going on. And then there was this discovery made in Russia that we only produce or use 90%, or we only use 10% of our brain maximum. Mm-hmm. And now I look at these people that put mind over matter, you know, and meditate and do these incredible things. And then I hear that we only use 10% of our brain. And I thought, does nature really produce in our heads 90% of waste material? I mean, that can't be. So from there onwards, I was always intrigued, you know, how can we do our full potential and how can we do things? And I started looking into energy healing, and I started looking into martial arts and feeling and sensing things, because I would say, you know, I'm naturally intuitive. So how to put all of this together, you know, not by chance, but by understanding. And this led me to a super interesting lifetime. And then I lived for over 20 years in South Africa, where you're exposed to complete different cultural background. And from there, I went into different healing modalities, supplements, nutrition, hypnotherapy. And it's just always been there to empower people to find their potential, because life actually is absolutely beautiful. And if you have a fulfilled life it's beautiful. It's brilliant.
I can really hear your curiosity and your sense of adventure in finding out who we are as human beings. And what you said about the brain, 10%. So I can hear that you were curious, thinking, my God, if we were using our maximum amount of our brain, who would we really be, and the power that we could have. And like we talk a lot about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in this conversation here, because obviously you found out some information, and it's so true, like, because so many of us, we've grown up in our environments, and talked about cultures, and you grew up in South Africa, and it really determines who we are from where we've grown up. And all the program, we talk about programming quite a lot as well. Can you talk to us a little bit about I suppose a little bit about who we have become as a result of the environments that we're living in, how that happens? Can you talk a little bit about that?
True. Yes, of course. The thing is that when you're born, the baby is just so open, and a baby knows that it's perfect, it's good enough, it's deserving, it's lovable. So then we imprint our belief systems, our cultures onto the little child that grows up. They eat the way we eat, they dress the way we dress, they talk the language. I grew up with German as a first language, almost failed English at school at some stage, but I kind of caught up. And now I speak almost 4 languages, and my children speak 6,
Wow.
So they grow up in the culture that they live. And we learn what's right and wrong according to the culture and the cultural background. And we learn how to tie our shoelaces. And depending where you are, you learn to eat with knife and forks or with chopsticks. So this gets all imprinted in the subconscious mind, our deep-seated belief systems, and also how we feel about ourselves. As I said, the baby that's born knows it's perfect, it's good enough, it's lovable, it's beautiful, it's deserving. And then depending on what caretakers say to you and your society around you and your circumstances, you grow up with a healthy belief system, with a healthy self-confidence, or you knock yourself down. I'm never going to achieve this. I'm not good enough. This doesn't happen to people like me. And through my work as a therapist, I've noticed, there's definite patterns. Everybody knows that by now with the psychology, there's patterns, and it goes back very often to our subconscious mind, which runs 95% of your daily decisions and actions.
Isn't that incredible? Yeah.
Exactly. And then again, we look again, how can I access this? How can I do this? And I've had my own fair amount of challenges, worries, concerns, anxiety, and things like that. So how do you overcome this? Why do you get triggered like this? Why do people have fear of flying or phobia of spiders? It's a program. It's not the truth.
So it's
the
coming
spider
from
doesn't do
somewhere.
anything.
Yeah.
Exactly. Where does it come from?
Yeah.
And this is what got me where I am today. Where does it come from, and how can we use that power to empower us and live a happy life, which is beneficial for myself and the people that I love and care about?
Because we live on automatic pilot almost, and we do so much stuff without even realizing what we're doing. We react to certain things and we behave a certain way, and for most of us, we don't even question that. We just accept it as it is, and we just get on with life, and that's who we are as far as we're concerned anyway. And then when you talk about this subconscious mind, so tell us about the subconscious mind. There is a purpose. Sometimes it serves us, but most of the time it's not. So tell us a little bit about the subconscious mind and what the role of the subconscious mind is, I suppose.
I think it serves us all the time. It just doesn't always use the best tools. It serves us in that way that if we have to think about everything consciously, it will be overwhelming. So
It uses a lot of energy, doesn't it? Yeah, it uses a lot of energy.
Exactly. Once you know how to tie your shoelaces, you do it in 30 seconds. I've never timed myself, but it's probably 10 seconds actually. And when you start learning it, it takes you half an hour. So it's good for things to run in the background, how to brush your teeth, how to get dressed, how to shower, these kind of things, how to drive a car, how to prepare a meal. It's okay for this to go in the background. And the subconscious mind is also there to protect you, and to make sure that you fit into the environment. And this is where the glitch sometimes comes in. Now, we as human being, we are tribe animals. We need the human connection. We do not exist in isolation. And when you go back to cavemen, it was dangerous to go out of the cave by yourself. And we haven't really gotten rid of that. So we still need family units and we need human connections.
Yeah.
All right. And in that human connection, you want to fit in. But now the thing is, the way society changes, there is very often that I call it divine discontent. When you sit in your boring office job, when you do the things over and over, what is one of the 6 human needs, or 2? The one is certainty, the other one is variety. And this is then when it comes, this is where the divine discontent comes and says, you're born to be more.
Yes.
There's more. You can be more,
Because we're curious, aren't we? We're curious human beings, and we love novelty.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
We do. Life is exciting, and we need that excitement. We need the break in routine.
So I can hear what you were saying, Antje, about the family dynamics, and we need to belong. We need to have a sense of belonging in the family. That's really, really important. That's one of our safety mechanisms. And we talk about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that's one of them, the safety and the family and the tribe and all that. And then you talk about fitting in, and you talked about a glitch as well. And I could hear, so for many of us, we like to feel that we belong, and we do whatever it is that we have to do to belong. And as we're grown up, Antje, for many of us, and even to this day, when it develops into adulthood and all the rest of them in a job situation, we like to be approved of. So we do things to please other people. And there's so many people that are people pleasers. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and there's a great joy in pleasing people. Again, it is all in the balance. And if you look at the natural law of giving and receiving, there's joy in it. You have to give in order to receive.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It's vital, it's important, because that's how we depend on each other, and that's how the family and the tribal connection is functioning, from giving and receiving. Yeah. It's just when it goes with a little bit of a twisted agenda, and that is deep seated again in our belief systems. Do we give and please because we need and crave the approval? Yeah. Because we very limited don't think that we're good enough just the way we are? Or do we give and please just for the joy of it, just because we can?
That's brilliant. Because so are we coming from a place of needing something, or because purely we want to give it from love? And if we're coming from a place of needing, or that we have to have something, there's an element of lack there, something missing.
Yes. Yeah, it's a scarcity mindset or consciousness versus abundance mindset. And you don't have to have the riches of the world in order to have an abundance mindset. It starts at the beginning. If you travel a lot and you go to the poorer countries, and I speak now from Africa because I've lived there long enough. If you go to Mozambique or Botswana, the poorest people are the most generous and they're the most kindest, because they live in the moment. They don't have this cultural blueprint of scarcity and greediness. In Africa, it's an uncommon rule throughout the entire continent. A traveler gets offered food and shelter, and they will share with you the little that they have. Yeah. If you go really into the rural area where life is balanced at the moment, there's a lot of crime, obviously, as well.
Yeah, and in this modern world, Antje, two of the biggest fears, I suppose, when you were talking about your people being so generous, where you were in South Africa, where they have so little and yet they're so generous. Um, in this Western world, we're afraid of losing what we have, and also that we'll never have what we really want. And both of those come from the past and the future, if you like. And rather than, you mentioned about being in the present moment, that in South Africa, the people there live in the present moment. So they're so grateful and present and aware of what they have right now. And that's all that matters to them. So where are we going wrong in the Western world that we're not living in the present moment, that we're always living from a place of having to need more and afraid of losing what we have?
I think I don't know if it's a wrong or right. It's just a different approach,
Yeah.
because if you live in the moment, if you're totally content with what you have, you will never better yourself or move forward. That's the downside of the rural areas in Southern Africa. So there's no progress there, or very limited progress, because they're so content. And it's a question, is it right or is it wrong? I don't know. In the Western world, we are driven by innovation. We're driven by wanting and exploring and innovating, which has also got totally its advantages. That's why we have iPhones. That's why we have tablets. That's why we have Zoom meetings. That's why we have podcasts.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there's advantages there. It's just about why do you do what you do? Okay.
Yeah.
What's your motive behind it? Do you want to empower the people? Do you want to change the world for the better? Or are you coming from a place of, oh my gosh, I'm not going to have enough. I need to accumulate. I need to hold on. I need to take it together. I need
Having
to
that feeling of fulfillment.
Yeah.
And something else you mentioned. So, Antje, can we go back to the family dynamic, right? So the child relationship. So the child growing up in this family, because this is the core of all their learning. And so this family dynamic. So when I was growing up, I always agreed with what my parents said to me, or I did everything because I wanted to be approved. They'd say to me, if I did something, they'll say, oh, good girl, Joanne. And I'd feel delighted with myself. So I knew then that all I had to do was keep doing that thing, but they'll think I'm a good child, right? And that's how I grew up. And even the generation before that, I was speaking with my mother previously, and she said to me, you never disagreed with your parents. Like, you just, whatever they said, that's just what happened. That just went down. And it's starting to change now over the generations. These days, children, I know I have a 10-year-old, so I should be 10 now next week. And it's kind of changing. They're questioning an awful lot. They're not necessarily taking it as gospel what you tell your children. What's going on? There's just stuff starting to change in our generations.
The thing is, when you were small, okay, I assume now, but correct me if you're right, if I'm wrong, if you can remember,
Yeah.
can remember, I'm sure there were times where you wanted to disagree, especially around the teenage
Oh,
times.
yeah. Oh, God,
you
yeah.
wanted to disagree, and you didn't have the courage, the empowerment to speak up, because you knew your parents wouldn't listen, and it would get you into trouble. And this is the survival. This is the survival mechanism of children and of people,
Yeah.
because the child knows from a very deep level, it needs the caretaker. It needs to please the mother, the father, the aunt, the uncle, the grandparent, whoever they grow up with. It needs to please those people in order to grow up. And then you have coming into the teenage times, and any teenager, if they do not disagree with you, there's something wrong. Okay, teenagers need to disagree. It's extremely healthy. That is how they find their independence. This is how they find the voice. And what do we do as parents? We fall back. Exactly. We fall back on the blueprint that we received when we were children. Okay. And then we fall back on that one. And then we parent the way we got parented, whether we liked it or not. And what very often happens with the parents, they forget how it felt when they weren't listened to, when they were scolded, and it wasn't their fault. And the mom and the dad or whoever just said, I don't want to hear another word. But That's it, you know. And we as parents, and I mean, I've also got two children, 11 and 15, you know. So we as parents, we need to remember what it was to be like a child.
Yeah.
And then when we have the courage to say, okay, listen, you know, listen, become conscious parents and listen and heal our own wounds that our own inner child has from not being heard,
Yeah.
then we become a conscious parent, and then we can change in a generation. We can change communication, confidence, belief systems, and unlocking the potential of our children by seeing them for who they are. They do not belong to us. They came through us.
Yes.
Okay? They came through us, and our role is to bring them up with a healthy confidence, with rules and manners,
Yeah.
so that they fit in. You know, it's not about allowing everything. They need guidelines. You know, children need guidelines. They need boundaries. It's so, so important.
I love what
But
you said, that
yeah,
we gave birth to children, but we don't own them.
exactly.
That is
Exactly.
so great, because as parents, we are dictating, well, most of us, what they should be doing and what
Yes.
they should be learning. And we say that's good for you or that's not good for you or whatever. And the child might be interested in something totally different. And we may have an opinion on that. I can hear, and I think it's really changing, and it's really changing now, and really much needed as well, because children need, I suppose, to have their own power. Children were seen and not heard back, you know, in my generation anyway, and you weren't allowed to give your opinion or whatever. But children, I think, need to have, you're right, like there's the sense of self-confidence and power. Give them power, and that could be just something small to give them that sense of power.
And that's just about listening. Let them speak until they're finished. And listen to the entire story. Listen to the entire explanation why XYZ is broken on the floor. Okay. And don't jump to conclusions too quickly.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, and see them for who they are. And then the next step is to go back, step back, and maybe if it's within safety and boundaries and possibilities, maybe do it the way your child suggests, and not always the way you've always done, and not always the way your parents have done it. Look, the biggest challenge for us as parents at the moment is electronics.
Oh yes,
Okay?
yeah. Talking about
Because
electronics, yeah.
why? Because we are the generation of parents who parenting children now that grow up with cell phones, tablets, TVs, everything electronic.
Mm.
And we didn't have that when we were children. So we do not have a blueprint from our parents to fall back on.
So true.
So we need to make it up as we go along. Okay?
Yeah.
Because we cannot ask our parents. I cannot go to my dad and say, what did you do? You know what was the funny thing was when my children wanted to have a cell phone, and then obviously the question comes, Mommy, how old were you when you got your first cell phone? And I said, I guess I was about 25. So because they didn't exist,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, because they're getting them at such a young age now. And the problem is when they're in class and they come home and they say, oh, Johnny has a mobile phone, why can't I have one? And is that peer pressure then as a result?
It is peer pressure, and it's a tricky situation that we're navigating at the moment, because on the one side there is some things that you just cannot do without a phone. My children got the phone actually because of a phone app, because the bus ticket runs on an app on the phone.
Right.
So they needed to get a smartphone to go on the bus to school.
Yeah.
All right. So
Great excuse.
so there's exactly, you know, that's the way we go. And the thing is, how do we do this? How do we find the balance?
Because phones and electronics are fantastic, but they're just used at the wrong time, the wrong amount of time on them. So there's a balance, as you say. Yeah. So that question, yeah, is very good.
There's a huge balance, and less is more, in my opinion. Absolutely less is more, because what the electronics, what they take away is the human connection, and it's easy parenting. because the child is busy, but we're not doing a favor. We're not doing a favor to our children by having them too much on it. It needs to be regulated. Electronic devices, they cause a whole lot of hormonal changes in the body. They are physically addictive. It's too much, depending on the age. It's too much for the brain to comprehend. There is a new medical term coming up. It is called digital dementia. The more you honor electronic device, the more stupider you become, in a nutshell.
Wow.
Because the brain is overstimulated, and you do not want, in my opinion, and there might be people disagree, but you do not want your 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old on an iPad. It's too much. Their little brains and their consciousness cannot comprehend it.
Now,
yeah.
And I love this conversation, because I think it cannot be, emphasized enough, Antje, because there's so much going on with electronic devices. We've got the Wi-Fi effects, the effects that it has right down to the cellular level, the brain stimulation that you're talking about. And there's so many children now with, ADHD and behavioral problems, okay? And then we've got this dopamine issue going on, and dopamine is very much related to addiction. That's why children can't put them down. Then we've got the issue of the blue light, and I talk about that quite a lot in relation to sleep. And there's a lot of children now that are not sleeping properly, or they're not sleeping deeply enough. And children need their sleep for all their healing and repair, and they're growing and developing. And so there's all these issues, like there's so much stuff going on. And young children, you were saying, 2, 3-year-olds getting the mobile phone and looking at cartoons or whatever on the screen, and their little skulls are not as developed as an adult skull. So that radiation can penetrate a lot easier into the brain as well. So there's a lot going on, Antje, isn't there, with these devices?
It's actually scary. The health effects, we're not even seeing them at the moment, but we will see them in the near future. But the effects are there, and the facts are there that when you carry your phone a lot in your bra, you very often develop tumors, cancerous tumors in the same size shape of your phone. And I mean, if that doesn't convince anyone, then I don't know what. Besides from the radiation and the dopamine rush and the addiction, what we're losing is physical and human connection.
Yeah.
And the easiest way of dealing with this is from the parent side. Parents, put your phone down.
Yes.
Children don't do as they're told. They do as they see. They do as you do.
Brilliant.
Everyone needs to put their phones and their tablets down. Go and sit and talk and listen to your kids. Go and play games. If you don't know what to play, go and get yourself a set of story cubes. I don't know, Joanne, do you know story cubes? It's one of my favorite games.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's absolutely brilliant. There's a couple of cubes with some pictures on. You roll the dice and then you line up the pictures, and then you tell a story. It is hilarious for children, for adults alike. Get back into that creative mode. Yeah. Go back into connect on a human level. What kind of adults are we raising if they do not have that human connection, that touch, the social interactivity? How do you learn social skills when the entire family sits in a restaurant and everyone is looking at their phone?
Yeah.
Who do we become?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it fills us up when we have a relationship with people, and that we know that people are, that the important people in our lives, and that we value them, and we value, communication and relationships. Like even in the business world, as we grow up into adults, we need to be able to relate to people, to be able to have a conversation with people, and not just about the weather, but like really be able to have empathy and feelings, and it's an absolute necessity. And people, loneliness is a very big, what I call it, disease. It's a very big problem, loneliness.
The heart emits a much, much stronger electromagnetic frequency than your brain. And at the end of the day, we need to get from our heads into our heart. And how do we get into our heart? We get with human interaction and human connection. And that can be just sitting in silence. And because of the addictive component of the electronics, if you now want to wean yourself and your child from the phone, expect resistance. You know, because the little ones are hooked, the teenagers are hooked. So a way to go about this is to offer an alternative straight away, you know, and lead by example. Lead by example. Go out for a walk, you know, whether it's lockdown or not. Go and walk in your yard, or do something silly in the living room. Be creative. Come back to who we are as human beings. You know, we are problem solvers. We have a sense of humor. You know, let your inner child out and play and enjoy. Be silly.